What is the most corrupt thing you've ever experienced? M's guy. In the days before the internet, I got fired by a private ambulance company for using the wrong pen to fill out Medicaid forms after a run. I used a ballpoint instead of the soft tip flare pens and was immediately sacked by the owner. A few years later, I found out he was imprisoned for Medicaid fraud. Turns out the soft tip pens he provided didn't go through all the carbon copies on the forms. And he was changing the bottom sheet to show more miles and services for each ambulance run before sending them to the state. The day I used the ballpoint was for a very long ride and cost him a lot of fraudulent money. That's why he was so infuriated. I won't go into details, but I work for a municipality as a fairly low-level employee. I've been offered bribes on a number of occasions to let things slide here and there. All very tempting, but I like my job too much to risk it for $20 or so. Long story short, the biggest bribe I have been offered is $1,000. I reported it to my supervisor and his response was, "Fuck dude, why didn't you take it?" I sure as hell would have. But we filed an official report. Didn't go anywhere as I didn't know the name of the people. Makes me wonder what else is going on that I don't know about. An old friend of mine got a job working for a church-based charity. They would accept household donations and sell them in a thrift store they had set up to raise funds for the needy. His job was to drive around in a cube van, pick up the donated items and deliver them to the charity. He openly bragged about picking the best items for himself and would drop them off at his house before delivering the rest of the items to the charity. I called him out on it and told him it was a bad idea, seeing as his cousin and 2 aunts worked there, and put in a good word for him to get hired. That's when he told me that they've been doing the same thing for years. He told me his aunts wouldn't even keep most what they stole. Rather, they would sell the items at garage sales, and that it was okay because that's how they make their money. To make matters worse, they were paid in cash so they could keep collecting welfare. Pure trash, and needless to say, I have nothing to do with them anymore. When I was getting food at food banks, the employees and volunteers would take the best quality, tastiest food for themselves or their friends, while stealing from people who can't feed their families is about as low as it's possible to go. I can understand snacking a cookie, but the food is meant for the people who actually need it and is not a payment. In December, one of my technicians at work called me while at a high-end neighborhood we have a lot of problems with homeowners in. He told me to just listen since he had his Bluetooth headphones on. The customer is sitting there on the phone talking to someone at his company asking how many essential personnel they can cut to get the most out of their bonuses. It's the kind of thing you see in movies. But it was surreal as hell to hear someone saying that in real life while being totally serious about it. I mean, that's a DCK move for sure. But it's not really corrupt. Morally questionable? Yes. Realizing that I was the only one who wasn't stealing from the company. Used to work in the IT department. And over time I noticed that things were going missing. Replace a bunch of monitors in a lab. Then a few weeks later notice all the old ones are back. What happened to the ones I just delivered? We don't have nearly as many of something in stock as it says on our shipping receipt. And why are we always out of service kits for the copy machines? Yeah. All of that was going on eBay or Craigslist or somewhere else. Didn't realize it for years. Maybe I'm just really oblivious. But the whole department was in on this. Had a friend who taught at a ritzy private school. Parents there pretty much bought grades. Had a girl cheat off me in math class for 2 entire years. My GPA was better, but she was still ranked 4th in the class. Me, 6th. Both of her parents were teachers, coaches. Know this one all too well. I work for a non-profit faith-based drug alcohol rehab. Turns out that in 2018 our founder and president CEO was skimming money from the company to, among other things, buy clothes and jewelry for his girlfriend. His wife must have been pissed when she found out. He had also ostensibly been clean for the better part of 30 years but was also getting high. And he's an ordained minister with his own church. I was assaulted, threatened with death, and physically and emotionally harmed by another person. The court found him guilty and ordered him to pay a $750 to the state and a $10 to me. That didn't even begin to cover the costs of gas spent as a result of the attack. I've never trusted the justice system since. Especially as I still freeze up every few months with nightmarish recollection what if daydreams. Edit. Just as an addition. We had extensive proof of his volatile personality, a breach of contract, and threats. None of it was taken seriously. Once while working as a night shift cashier at a store, my supervisor randomly told me to take a break and that he'd take over the register for me. I was just happy to sit down and went to the break room while he made small talk with a customer he seemed to know. I thought nothing of it and finished my shift as usual. The next day, the store manager called me into his office and fired me. I was flabbergasted. He said that I gave a 99% discount on over $150 worth of merchandise last night. I told him that I didn't and couldn't without supervisor approval anyway. They had to enter their unique code to give discounts. I was fired because it was my register and my supervisor kept his job. Not sure how much I've experienced this, but gerrymandering is the most blatantly corrupt thing I can think of. It's not under the table. It's in plain daylight. And somehow they get away with it unquestioned. I used to work at a non-profit that provided financial education to middle school and high school students, achievement of juniors. The VP, my direct supervisor, was using money from our sponsors, the city schools and No Child Left Behind, to pay for his girlfriend's apartment that was around the corner from our office. Somehow he was altering our records so that no one would notice. Side note. Although this sounds like bullshit, his wife had cancer. I've known of at least 3 guys who cheated on their wives who were battling cancer. One brought his mistress to the funeral of his wife who lost the fight. Raffle for a jet ski at a local carnival sponsoring the local volunteer fire department. When they called the winner of the jet ski, I was standing right behind the guy who drew the ticket. When the ticket was drawn, he called a completely different name than was on the ticket. Winner was a close friend of the fire chief. I started hanging out with this girl a few years ago and we quickly became best friends and were together every day. We were partying all the time, drinking and getting high. One night she suggested that we go hang out and drink with her little brother and his friends at his friend's apt. They gave me a drink, and afterwards I started feeling really weird, out of focus and dizzy. I felt like I was so heavy and disoriented. I said to my friend that I needed to go outside for a few minutes. Her brother said he wanted to step out and smoke a cig. We walked outside and I guess I blacked out because I came to and he was on top of me, having sex with me in the backseat of my car. I couldn't even move or talk. I felt like I was almost in a dream or something. Then, all of a sudden I woke up the next day in my own bed. I texted my friend and told her what happened with her brother. You know what he said to me? Oh yeah. Ricky told me he thought you were really hot and wanted to get you barred out so he could FCK you. I swear to F King God I'm not making this up. I can swear on my child. Why? Because that bastard raped me and got me F King pregnant. My son just turned 4 and he's my best friend. The world is beautiful. People aren't. I've never trusted anybody since that happened to me. I worked at a small photography bus-ins when I was 18. The owner and her sister were shady with everything. We didn't have real tickets, just random pre-printed papers that we filled manually. Neither me or the other girl working there had a contract. It was the first years of the economical crisis in Spain, so most people stuck with whatever job you could get. Anyway, I was going through old company emails and a really slow day to entertain myself. I started to see weird emails from an attorney about a lost trial. I went through the mails until I found the first one and read them chronologically. Seems like the owner had been using that email for personal shit back in time, and she F-King tried to fake a robbery in her house. They set it up as if someone had broke into the house via the garage, and they were found guilty of faking it as the door was forced from the inside. So corrupt and dumb, I would say. I was pulled over for a burned out taillight when I was around 19 years old. I was sober but was immediately asked to take a field sobriety test, which I somehow failed. Cop had my car towed, and I heard him tell the tow driver I should be able to have a few more for you tomorrow to get to 10 by the end of the week. The driver said come by Friday and we'll settle up. Double quote. Took a breathalyzer at the station and blew 0. Had to be picked up. $450 to get my car out of the lot. That was virtually all the money I had at the time. A construction company I worked for. Buy a ton of extra material. Bill the customer all of it, showing the receipts. Return the massive amount of extra. Cover it up with fraudulent bookkeeping. Every job. Every time. I was working for the government and lots of people would take half days off and still get paid for the whole day. My boss would often come dressed in his golf outfit only to disappear after lunch. One day we had a small emergency and the big boss realized that I was the only one there and I couldn't do anything because I didn't have access to the computers. Smaller boss had to come back, still wearing his golf attire, to help. Of course nothing happened to him. Still in the government. The boss retired early and then got hired as a consultant for a private firm that he had coincidentally given contracts through the years. So he came back working for the same place but now getting paid in double. Bought insulin in America. You win. Because you lost so much. Insulin prices, like everything else priced healthcare, is insane. And I truly feel for you. As for personally witnessed, it's fairly tame I suppose. I worked for a company that built machine parts and certain parts were plastic but they could be upgraded to their urethane equivalents for a pretty substantial upcharge. We always made these parts with plastic regardless of what the customers ordered. Urethane. As in PU. Polyurethane. As in plastic? This is gold. Just ripping off the unknowing. I watched an underqualified person who was ABD, completed a PhD but had not defended it, with 0 publications and no postdoc get a tenure track job at a major Canadian university. They were a gay ethnic minority from a good Ivy League PhD program so the hiring committee rejected at least 80 more qualified applicants. I was a grad student observer on the committee but to this day I think it was so corrupt. Had a restaurant I own broken into. The cops told me that because I didn't have a security alarm permit, they wouldn't be even coming. I went on the city website to find that the security alarm permit is just you enter your store address and phone number and you pay $150 a year. Ever been to a store and at checkout, they ask if you'd like to donate money for charity or some cause? That money is then donated to whatever charity or cause, but is also a tax write-off for them. You are literally paying their taxes for them if you give them money to donate. Police officers blocking my way until I gave them money. In Egypt. It was 10 years ago. I was the last one of our group coming back from some viewing platform at the Pyramid of Saqqara and they just blocked the stairs and extended their hands in front of me. I had to bribe them to be able to descend the stairs and go back to the group. When you think these people are there to protect the tourists, it's kinda baffling. At least they were cheap, a few euros each. When I was a senior in high school, we had a senior party after graduation and our parent group had raised tens of thousands of dollars for a raffle at the end of the party. The person in charge of the raffle had a son in my grade. Their foreign exchange student won a brand new MacBook Pro and her son won the grand prize of $1,500 cash. I walked out with a $5 gift card to an ice cream shop that had gone under a few weeks prior. FCK that shit. Reddit mods. Brave. Even when you're being nice to mods they are dickheads. I got temp banned from the nutrition board this week for trying to suggest they correct an automod message to make actual sense. Police gave a musician I was dating 1 hour to do whatever you want to the person who broke into his home. He was in the station's jail cell after they had just apprehended him. I've been shaken down at border crossings between Kazakhstan and China. Nepal, India and at the Casablanca airport, all by customs officials. The airport one was a bit surprising. But overland crossings are always an excuse for payoffs. Lol.
Thank you for watching.
Subscribe for more.